Hey everybody, Neon here. Today I got another review ready for you guys about Bloody Time. For this review, it involves a writer actually working with a friend of mine, Maggie's Heart Love. 2 bits if the name sounds familiar to you. But if it doesn't, I actually made plenty of good reviews on her saga called The Little Pony Legend, and even made a song countdown of that, probably the first time ever for anyone. The writer of today's story is actually working with her on a story called The Shadows of Ronin, which I'll get to sometime down the road. I'm just gonna get on to it now. Today's story is called The Legends of Equestria, The Princess, the Queen, and the Mirror by Blue Blur 92. Now, I'm going to be blunt here. This story's plot mirrors an existing one from Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I only seen the movie once, but I still see plenty of similarities when comparing both stories. I can't exactly blame the writer though, considering it's supposed to be a crossover of that anyway, with The Legend of Korra and My Little Pony mixed in. So you can say it's Narnia, but with a Little Pony Legend sort of flair. While not original altogether, the execution is still a good enough read to make it its own story, and the laughs it does give are quite genuine thanks to the pony characters, Discord and Pinky being prime examples. I'd also like to point out that this is also an alternative universe from the stories it's mixed with. And while that does give the writer the right of way, it's just a reason to have the characters of Avatar and MLP to fill in the roles of the characters in Narnia, whether being characters pre-existing or original characters put in. At least Blue Blur didn't forget on who's who, and fits the characters in accordingly rather than just tosses them in to see if it worked. As for the alternatives changed, I at first thought it was just going to be The Little Pony Legend but in a different way, until we figured out the 4 main characters, Jinora, Kai, Mako, and Last Airbender's version of Katara. From what I recall, there's no mention of any Avatar, Celestia, or anything like that, so I'm convinced that this world is very different from the original. It does give mention of the Equalists in the first chapter, but as I've been saying, they're just filling in the roles of pre-existing characters, in this case the German bombers. It does give credit to try to mix things up when a Discord appears, but he doesn't really stick around for too long to make any true impression. He is funny, don't get me wrong, but still. The 4 main characters, as I've said, are just filling the roles of Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy from the movie, from where roles are being used to their interactions with each other. The story puts them as the 4 siblings and the prophets who will save Equestria from the evil Jadis, Nightmare Moon. I think you see the pattern here. The biggest problem with this story is that it's just a remake of the first Narnia movie and doesn't try too much to make itself different from it to get its own story across. I mean, there's an eternal winter just like Narnia, so why isn't there herds of Wendigo running around? I'd seen them as probably better suited for Nightmare's henchmen than typical griffins and wolves. I wouldn't call it lazy, but more of keeping in a comfort zone throughout most of the story, and that holds the story back from being its own experience. The original characters aren't saved from this either, Shade being the role of Magrim, or Chai as the fox aiding the children. Not much life apart from name and body there. I guess this is also its saving grace, because nothing is dulled down on what happens to the characters during their struggles with Nightmare, some of them even dying throughout it as well, again much like the movie. I know I said it's still having its own flair and having its own story, and it still is, even if it's just a remake on the surface. It's still in Equestria, and it still can be silly depending on who's talking. I mean, Pinky's still Pinky, and Zecora still rhymes like she usually does, and evolving with Vaatu and Wan still happen like LOE put it, so overall the concept is mainly a mixed one. The setting they're out in does at least set in places that we already know. It doesn't end up going lazy and renaming places like Narnia to, Marnia or something, but it still keeps the settings as they are. Equestria is still Equestria, Zecora's house is still there, and Ponyville's still there, I think, which is a good thing. If Blue Blur did do that, I'd not even bother with this. It does change tone from what happens to Katara, Mako, Kai, and Jinora at the end, which I not only find cool, but a unique callback in my own experience. I won't say it here because of spoilers' sake, so you're just gonna have to see for yourself now, won't you? Now for my overall review. As a story, this one doesn't exactly have much support outside of the Narnia movie, and the fact that it mirrors a lot from it when comparing one to the other is admittedly holding it back. But it still holds the charm of MLP and LOK, so it succeeds in that regard anyway. I'd also like to point out one more thing before I go, that this story is a 10-year anniversary for Narnia. So, Blue Blur 92, kudos. Well, I'll see you all later. Neon out.